Okay, I've read chapters 5 through 13 of A Clash of Kings, and I've said this before, but it's worth saying again now that I've got to the rest of the characters who see the red comet. But in Tolkien and Lewis, the world begins with music. But in A Song of Ice and Fire, the music has fractured. Because the same note is struck in the sky with the red comet. But instead of harmony, we get discord. To Catelyn, it signifies vengeance. To Stannis, destiny. To Dany, it signifies a promise. And to others, it's a harbinger of doom. So one sign, but hundreds of meanings. And this tells us something fundamental. This is not a world where truth is given. It's a world where truth is fought over. Every character sees the same thing, but no one sees the same meaning. At one point, Catelyn thinks to herself that it's like a long scratch across the face of God, which I just had to highlight. I only have a Libby ebook through my library, but in the ebook I specifically highlighted that, like a long scratch across the face of God, because it just seems so important. Because unlike Tolkien, where the heavens reflect divine harmony and where signs point toward truth, here the heavens themselves look wounded. It's like a long scratch across the face of God. Almost kind of reminds me of the wound in Jesus' side that he received at the cross, that made sure he was dead before they took him down. In The Lord of the Rings, signs like the return of the king have objective meaning. Even when misunderstood, they're anchored in a deeper truth, like the Witch King who misunderstood the prophecy about his doom, thinking it was about that he was indestructible, when in fact it was just saying no, you're gonna be destroyed, just not by a man. But here in Westeros, meaning is not discovered, it's assigned. And that leads to another line that just struck me so powerfully. I believe it's Varys that says it. But power resides where men believe it resides. And another, a shadow on the wall, yet shadows can kill. And this reminded me of Charles Williams. He was another Inkling, like C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien. He was a good friend of both Lewis and Tolkien. And specifically, his books Descent into Hell and All Hallows Eve, which explores spiritual realities through perception and will. In Williams, symbols are not just symbols, they become real through participation. And that's exactly what seems to be happening here. The comet means nothing until people act on it. Kings aren't kings until people believe they are. Religion isn't true until it reshapes reality. Reality in Martin is co created by belief and action. That's very Charles Williams. In Tolkien, truth creates reality. In Martin, belief competes to define it. And one of the most disturbing sequences in the book so far, at least to me, is the burning of the seven. And what's fascinating is that Davos doesn't believe strongly in any gods, but he knows something is wrong. So why? Because this isn't faith. This is power using faith. That's why Davos sees this as wrong. He doesn't believe strongly in any particular religion, but he recognizes that it's not faith that he's seeing. He's seeing power that's using faith. In The Abolition of Man, C.S. Lewis warns, when values are manipulated for power, you don't create a new truth. You destroy meaning itself. That's Stannis's danger. And he says, it is time I tried another hawk, a red hawk. He doesn't believe, he's using belief. And that's very dangerous. That's what tyrants do. And then one of the most chilling myths so far that we see in this section is Azor Ahai forging Lightbringer. Because the first attempt fails, the second fails, and then the third requires killing his own wife. And the key question in this is, what kind of world requires that kind of hero? The whole Stannis and Melisandre storyline I'm getting is kind of authoritarian and totalitarianism, even in the myths that are told. In Tolkien, power corrupts and sacrifice redeems. Frodo doesn't kill Sam to destroy the ring, and Sam doesn't kill Frodo to destroy the ring. But Martin's version is that power may require sacrifice of the innocent. That's quite darker. And then C.S. Lewis once said that true sacrifice is self-giving, not the destruction of another. That's true sacrifice. True sacrifice is self-giving. It doesn't seek to destroy others. In Tolkien, the hero gives himself. But in Martin, the hero may demand someone else pay the price. This section quietly builds another of the strongest emotional threads, specifically in the characters of Arya, Jon, and Theon. And that is, who are you when everything is taken from you? With Arya, I think it began way back early in book one when she lost Nymeria, and we get a little more about her feelings about losing Nymeria here, but also losing her family. She was present when her own father was killed, and still trying to be a wolf. Uh, it says, there's a great line. It says, sometimes she felt like she was just a little girl. That's devastating to me. And then Jon chooses duty over identity. And in a lot of ways, he mirrors Master Aemon in the renunciation of power. And that's very Tolkien. Jon is probably the one that's most like the most Tolkienian character, I think. And then Theon is the most tragic arc here because he wants to belong, but he belongs nowhere. His father says to him, "The green lands have made you soft." And so with Theon, identity is not eternal. It's is not internal. It's enforced by culture. And this reminded me a little of Charles Williams again, because Williams often explores the danger of choosing the wrong allegiance. The soul shaped by the system it serves. And at least right now, that seems to be Theon's character. And then, while the world is fracturing, Dany is becoming something new. She interprets the comet differently. She says, "It is the herald of my coming." And here's the difference: she acts on it. First of all, her dragons, we see, won't eat raw meat, only cooked, which just makes sense for dragons because they breathe fire. So why would they eat raw meat? Never thought about that before, but that's something that makes sense. It's a subtle but powerful detail, though. They're not just beasts. They're tied to fire and transformation. Cooking meat transforms it. And the dragons, they're beasts that are tied to fire and transformation. And then back to Tolkien and Lewis with music as creation. In Tolkien, the Ainur sing the world into being. In Lewis, Aslan sings Narnia into existence. And here, the dragons return and the world begins to change. The key line in this section to me is, the song is beginning, but it is not a song of harmony. It is a song of fire. This section is about one thing: the world is no longer unified. Truth is fractured, power is contested, faith is weaponized, identity is unstable. And above it all, the comet is burning through the sky. So in Tolkien, the music brings the world together. In Martin, the same note is splitting it apart. And somewhere beyond the horizon, dragons are beginning to sing. So, I'm really interested in where book 2 is going to end up going. I believe my next chapter is another Aurea chapter, so that should be a good one. But I'll see y'all next time.